What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Go for Launch podcast, and today we're talking about mostly spaceflight and some channel stuff. Let's get started. Okay, let's start off with spaceflight. So, I posted the last podcast episode like a month ago. Oops. Starship IFT-7 happened and failed. I like to think of it as a success since they caught the booster, but by all accounts it was a failure. Second stage detonated, or rutted, as we say in the spaceflight community. RUD, ED, rutted. RUD, RUD stands for Rapid Unscheduled Disassembly, if you don't know that. But it was basically the thrust puck was too weak to withstand the engines. And the engines water snowballed, caused a leak in the forward dome, which started killing engines, and started a fire. But that started killing engines, causing the ship eventually to spin out, leave its corridor, and flight termination, or FTS, to activate and destroy the ship. Which was a major failure since that was the first flight of the Block 2 Starship. Which is really unfortunate because at this point we shouldn't be seeing that type of failure. That happened back on IFT-2, where the second stage did explode. Which really is a thing that we should have seen in the prototype phase, but not in the more complete phase. So for those who don't know, Starship Block 2 is the improvement over Block 1, which was the prototype for the entire Starship program. And Block 2 is supposed to be more operational. I'm guessing we'll see it deploy some payloads, do some... it's still a prototype to an extent, like prototyping, reuse, and all that stuff, but it is mainly supposed to be a much more finished and refined version of Block 1, which is really unfortunate why we saw this failure. But, they made so many changes, it is to be expected that something might have gone wrong. It's not that rare for when you do a lot of changes for something to go wrong. For example, Amos 6, SpaceX's, they were fueling up the Falcon 9 for a wet dress rehearsal, when just out of the blue the thing exploded. Turned out it was because they had been doing super chill propellants, so that's why no one else had ever seen this failure. It was the liquid oxygen leaked into the carbon fiber weave of the COPV on the second stage, and when it touched the metal tank that stored liquid helium, negative 423 degrees, I think. It's really, really cold. It froze immediately, blew the carbon fiber weave open, blew the tank open, overpressured the oxygen tank, and boom goes the stage. And the rest of the Falcon, and the launch pad, and the $6 million satellite. Oops. But when you make a lot of changes, something's bound to go wrong eventually. But since it was a more refined version, it really shouldn't have failed like that. But moving on to Flight 8, which hasn't happened yet. But Flight 8 will be Booster 15, and Ship 33, the second Block 2 ship, and we are hoping to have a fully successful flight with re-entry, splashdown, and booster catch. Speaking of booster catches, let's talk about super heavy reuse. So Booster 14 came back in much more pristine condition than Booster 12. Booster 12 came back with a chime part of a chime missing. The COPV was still there, thankfully. Chime was missing. The booster quick disconnect, or BQD, was spewing flames, which was kind of cool to see, honestly. But it wasn't in great shape, but it's in better shape than Booster 13, which is currently at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America now. But Booster 14 came back in much more pristine condition, and there have been rumors that they will reuse it on Flight 9. Flight 8 seems very, very unlikely because it's already got a super heavy. The super heavy is already getting its grid fins and engines fitted, so it's ready to go pretty much. And with the FAA holdup, because like the ship exploded, it didn't hurt anyone or anything, but planes will usually diverge. So that's to be expected. Like those planes were already having to diverge because that was the exclusion zone. So like when everybody's like, "Oh no, this plane had to turn away," that's because there was an exclusion zone there already. All the debris, as far as I know, fell in the exclusion zone, which is like the no-go zone for ships and for boats and people and planes. Because like even if the ship hadn't exploded, it still would have been coming down in one massive building-sized chunk about an hour later and landing in the ocean, and being hit by that is going to be a lot more harmful than being hit by a tiny piece of, well, possibly tiny, probably big piece of debris. And it's probably still pretty hot. But Booster 14 might be used on Flight 9 because Booster 16 isn't done yet, and it will, given the pace of most boosters, it'll probably be done somewhere around August. That is not good for how fast SpaceX has been moving with these recent launches. Like Flight 5 to 6, about a month. Flight 6 to 7, a little over, approaching 2 months. Flight 7 to 8 is to be seen, but it's probably still going to be relatively short, especially compared to Flight 4 to 5 and Flight 1 to 2. So if SpaceX wants to use Booster 16, it's not looking good. Maybe if you are going to use Booster 16, unless you can pull that thing together and get it wet dress rehearsaled, or not wet dress, but pressure tested before April or during April, you might not want to use it. But if you do use it, then use it on Flight 9 or 10 so that we can get a reuse. I would love that. But let's talk about the things surrounding super heavy reuse. Think about Falcon 9. It took so long for them to get a Falcon 9 booster reused. About a year from the first one landing. The first one, as far as I know, did it ever fly again? I don't think the first one ever flew again. But it's currently saying that SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California. But the thing around it is they're probably going to inspect it pretty good, because it's still only the second booster. Like Booster 12 they took in and they searched the entire thing like they did with the first one, because they want to make sure it's okay. It could be reused if they wanted to, other than the chime coming off. And fun fact, if you don't know this, Raptor 314, the Pi Raptor, was reused on Flight 7, Booster 14. And it flew, and so we already have a Raptor on its second flight. Okay, I guess that's not as big of a deal because like we had Starhopper. Actually, I think they changed out the engine between Starhopper. Maybe. Fact check me on all of this because I can't, like, during recording of the podcast, I don't usually have, like, an info sheet. I'll double check and make sure I'll put captions up if I'm wrong with this. Well, maybe. Probably I might get lazy and not. But super heavy reuse is probably going to be a little more rigorous because it's such a massive vehicle. Like, the Falcon 9 as an entire stack fairing, well, with the Dragon capsule, it would be shorter, but with a normal fairing, second stage, and first stage, it's this about the same height as a super heavy booster. It's only, you know, what, like, let's see, Falcon 9's 3 meters across, I think. Yeah, it's 12 feet, so about 3 meters. Yeah, Falcon 9's about 3 meters. Starship is 9 meters, so, you know, just an extra 6 meters on there. Proven by, like, the point that they have a downcomer or some sort of hardware that is the size of Falcon 9, and it's suspected to be a downcomer pipe. But super heavy reuse on Flight 9 is possible. I'd say it's a little more likely that it happens 10, 11, or 12 with a different booster like 15 or 16. Like, so later booster and a later flight, but I would say that Flight 9 with booster 14 is not out of the books. I wouldn't completely unacknowledge it as a possibility. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about some channel stuff. So, I'm not sure if I have posted the entire mountain of videos I have to edit and post yet. But I have a few different videos that are different formats coming out. So I know I posted the video, add another rocket to the O-Rock list, about getting Pathfinder B1 ready for flight. And then the 3D printed rocket video is about Pathfinder B2. Pathfinder B1 is, that was the rocket in that video. I know, they look totally different, but they're both Pathfinders. That video was kind of a one take, and I just threw all the footage together and didn't really do much editing. I have another one coming out on the Apogee Avion rocket that I got. It's a really tiny rocket. It only flies on C's and D's. I know, pretty wimpy. But it's just kind of just to test a different video, and like I can fly that thing like 20 times for like $50 for the same price as I could fly another rocket I'm building for about the same price, only once. So it's kind of fun. But that video is more of a little more edit heavy, but it's more of like a build focused video with less commentary. So I'm testing that one. And then I have 2 normal videos coming out. Well, actually I also have a music video coming out soon. And then I have 2 normal videos about N5800 rocket, not a motor. It's flying on a G79, so nowhere near the N5800. I wish I could get my hands on an N5800. That'd be awesome. N5800, that's a rocket name again. And then Dream Tribute, and that rocket has something to do with that music video. Watch the music video if you want to find out how Dream Tribute is related to the music video. And watch the Dream Tribute build video if you want to find out how they're... the Dream Tribute rocket video will make it a little more clear how they're related. Okay, moving on. But also I have a few different video and channel methods that I want to test out. So I'm going to have I'll have a vote in the description down below. So if you want to vote on how you like not the podcast videos, the normal channel videos, go vote down there, and I'll try out some ideas, some of the winners. Also, I'm going to be doing a lot more of space shot stuff, and a little less of the personal projects. So like N5800, Dream Tribute, Pathfinder, and the Avion rocket. Those are all Pathfinder B1. Those are all personal projects, and then Pathfinder B2 is Project Vulcan, which I have decided that getting my hands on an N5800 and an M2020 is going to be a little harder, especially with how hard it is to get your hands on a CTI N5800. M2020 I don't expect to be that hard to get my hands on, but the N5800 will probably be a lot harder. So I'd say this summer is possible, not very likely, but possible. I'd say next year's Perseid's shower is a lot more likely, and then this will be done before 3 summers away. So this will be done. See, 2026. This will be done. This will fly before 2027's Perseids are done. It might fly in the Perseids in 2027. Project Vulcan will be done before 2027. Summer of 2027. August, very specifically. So, Project Vulcan will be done before August of 2027. Mark it, pin it, it will be done before 2027. But the space shot I haven't worked on like almost at all on this channel, which is really confusing because that's like the reason I started the channel, is to document the space shot. So we're gonna do, after this April Mania, we're gonna do a lot of space shot development. We're gonna work on fin tabs. We're gonna work on the parachute development program again. Dark Goes Boom has something to do with that parachute development program, if you're wondering. You'll find out in the video that comes out probably in May now. We're gonna do fin tabs, rocket motors. We're gonna do a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I have a running list of all the technology, like different technology upgrades I'm gonna need to get me from where I am now to a space shot. It's a lot, if you're wondering. This thing will be done before 2029. So I have 4 years before this thing needs to be done. Actually, yeah, 4 years. 4 years, and then this will be done before 2029, or it'll fly before the end of 2029. TVC-1, if you remember, if you've seen the TVC-1 series, some of it, I need to get back to work on that. TVC thrust vector control is just really, really hard because that is the entire stability of the rocket. Like with fin tabs, like I'm planning to do with Project Vulcan and the space shot, the rocket is naturally stable. And especially if you're just doing roll, the tab can be so tiny that, like, the worst thing that happens is you roll the rocket up real bad. It's not going to, like, you're not, like, okay, let me make this very clear. This is assuming that you have a barely viable roll control surface on one side of the vehicle. Let me make that very clear. There are ways that this could go wrong if you had 2 or 3 or 4. I'll link Joe's video down in the description. He goes into a lot more depth on how this could go wrong and what you should do. Because, like, as he points out, like, this is almost not at all regulated. But that is very subject to change if someone makes a dumb mistake and, like, kills someone. And, like, it could be used to build a missile if you do something dumb with it. So, be mindful of that if you start this. I'm being very mindful. But if you're starting with just a barely viable fin tab on one fin, the worst thing you do is spin the rocket up by accident. So that's not very dangerous in that configuration. But in TVC, there's no fins to save you. Like, the whole thing about the fin tab, it's just barely enough. Like, the fins are doing all the stabilization. The fin tab has no play in the stability of the rocket. In TVC, like, anything wrong with the TVC mount or thrust vector control mount and rig and code and computer and everything means disaster for the flight. Like, look at Flight 1 for Starship, spun out of control when it started losing. Not directly because it lost the Raptors, but when it started losing lit Raptors and they started locking up, that's when the problem started. Started spinning out of control because, like, all the hydraulic actuators were failing, so it couldn't move the engines. So that's very problematic, and that's the main reason that TVC is so much harder than fin tabs. Fin tabs are still hard and dangerous if you don't do them right, though. So do not think this is me saying that you should jump right into a full 4-control fin tab and accidentally plow a rocket into the ground after lighting it horizontal. That would be very bad. Sorry, Kip, for your loss on that O5500 rocket. That was, I was listening to the podcast, and that thing lit like a cruise missile. It truly did. But other than that, we don't have much else to talk about. So I think I'm going to wrap it up with Patreon. If you do want to see more background stuff, like Patreons already know about what happened with the rocket, dart, parachutes, all that stuff. They know that 3D printed rocket that was in the beginning of the 3D printed rockets video where I was pulling it out of the ground. They know what that rocket is. They know the parachute dev program. They know about what happened in the Dart Goes Boom video. They know all of that, and they know everything I'm working on right now. They know a bunch of stuff that you guys don't. So if you want to get access to all of that, it is $5 a month for all that. If you want to join the discussion if you want to help steer the discussion for the podcast, you can go join for $1. I'm trying to get it free, and please stand by for that. But other than that, my name is Liam P. You can find me on Pendergast Orbitals, which you probably already did if you're listening to this. But you can find me at Pendergast Orbitals on YouTube. And that's all we have to talk about today. So I'll see you next time on the Go for Launch podcast.